So, a few days after I came home for Christmas break, I knew that my dad was most likely going to try to um, reestablish contact. Hoover, right around now, holiday is coming up, Christmas obviously, and I borrowed my mom's phone and came across some of the text messages that my dad has sent to her, and I was appalled, shaken up. I couldn't, it was hard to read. Um, he's claiming that he was a victim in all of this, which really took me a while to try to get my head around it. Um, After seeing the text messages and a couple of messages that really, I think he mentioned in one text message to my mom, he said that I would not be patient with him um, for long, or something along those lines. I have it printed out. Um, and I thought, okay, I talked to a counselor at school. I spoke to a police officer on campus before coming here, and they both suggest that the police officer gave me specific instructions, but they both suggested that I try to get an order in place, an order of protection in place during this holiday period. The police officer gave me detailed instructions. He told me to go to the court and file for a domestic violence protective order because me and my dad were blood related. It's father son, so I couldn't. That was my option. That was my only option, based on speaking with the officer. So I took his advice. So the plan was to come home, gather up all the evidence of him trying to reestablish contact, everything I had. What he told me, everything I had. I gathered up everything I had. I finally yesterday had everything I felt like I needed to get an order in place. And I found a way downtown and went to the fifth floor of the courthouse and filed the paper. Yeah, as part of the instructions, you got to file the order. You have to fill out the paperwork, describe what was going on, and I did. I told him everything. I wrote down everything. I even included what happened in March of 2013. Watching a NASCAR race on TV, being called to his room, my dad's room. The next thing you know, I'm being shoved, him instigating a fight. Hey, first of all, he threatened me right before that. Next thing you know, I'm on the ground, thrown on the ground by him, in front of my stepmom and her mom, and he started pounding on me when I was on the ground. I included that story. And I was incredibly nervous while filing this application. I've never done anything like this before. Never been in a courthouse before. I don't think I have. I did everything. I included everything. I included everything. I did everything I possibly could. And I turned in the order, the paperwork, to the two people in the domestic violence office. And basically, once you turn in the paperwork, you wait in that waiting room sort of thing, and they call you to the courthouse, and they you go before a judge and convince them why they should put in place an ex parte order where obviously the defendant's not there, and you're pleading your case against why an order should be in place. And I tried everything, and turned in my paperwork. Obviously, it was called the courthouse. The lady had a very similar situation, but somebody in a youth group or something like that, and she got an order. Well, after her, I was next. I go up, hand the Bible, right hand up, of course, and promise that everything I was telling them was true and all that. Okay. Next, the judge asked me what's been going on. Next thing you know, he asked me, any proof of domestic violence? Well, I had to give him all I had. The audio recordings, or the voicemails, text messages. I couldn't prove the actual domestic violence, obviously. I couldn't prove what happened in 2013, where the physical altercation. Obviously, I couldn't prove any of that. After that physical altercation, my dad did toss me a phone and say, "Hey, you want to call 911? Call 911." He chucked the phone at me, but that's something I regret not doing. I should have done that so that it would be documented and in the record books, but I didn't, and I tried my hardest, and honestly, I thought I would get the order, but now the price that I pay for trying to go out of my way to protect myself is that I have to face him in court January 3rd, 9 a.m. And I have to plead my case again in front of him. Same person that's led to a lot of trauma. Same person that's led me to have to go to counseling sessions weeks at a time on campus. You can call there's records in the office of how many times you've been there and all that. Depression tests that I took. I was there a lot because of what happened with my dad in the last 6 months, and really last 3 to 4 years. And even beyond that. So, I tried to plead my case. They obviously denied the ex parte order. And like I said, it's like the judicial system basically punishing the victims, making them have to face the abuser, and making it very, very hard for the abuser to truly get free. Narcissistic abuse is so covert most of the time that in a court setting it's very, very hard to prove. It's hard. It's very difficult to prove. You can't. I mean, it's unless they've gone over the top and done something very obvious, and you have direct evidence of it, you're screwed. Nobody knows the emotional abuse. Nobody really understands it. And obviously, this judge, emotional abuse doesn't fall under domestic violence. But, looking it up, emotional abuse does fall under domestic violence. I tried. And now I have to face him in court. I don't know if I should just not show up or be there and try to plead my case and stop him from lying. But honestly, I feel like one action to try to protect myself from what could happen, and at least protect myself from what happened during Thanksgiving happening again. All those efforts to protect myself, the effort to protect myself basically fell flat on my face. And I feel let down, so it's very difficult. And like I said, the abuse is so covert that it's so difficult to prove in court. And the abuser gets away with it. Period. They just get away with it. Because a lot of the abuse, the emotional abuse, is so covert. It's so damaging, but very few people know how damaging it can be and what it is. It's unfortunate.